Alrighty. Well, pal. Hey, Calgary. Just gonna make sure that the audio is coming through. So do let me know if audio is coming through and if you see me. My screen should not be up on the screen yet. We got Grant. And Grant says, see and hear you. Awesome. And in just a second, you should see boop, my screen's up. Welcome. Wow. Just a brand new set of faces about to embark. I mean, I guess you've already embarked, about to continue to embark on your journey of becoming web developers. What? Make sure that I'm going to keep, Calgary, I'm going to keep your Slack open. My notifications don't work sometimes just because I turn them off. Could somebody in Vancouver watch the Calgary channel for me? Could I just get a volunteer? All right. Yeah, you do. You could just, if you go into, just click on the word channels, then you can search for, like, I think if you search for just the number 14, yeah. If you search for the number 14, you'll find one that says Calgary 14. And then just join it. Your name is? Ted. Sweet. So Ted, just let me know when there's a notification so I can hop on that. Sweet. Welcome. Welcome. I like to start off my lectures with I don't know, usually like trap ad-libs, a sound effect. I think KV does jokes. I don't know any jokes. My name, should we just pretend as if you've known me this whole time? Well, welcome back. So as we talked about last time, we were, in the middle of big O notation now. So let's start off with some introductions. I wasn't here on Monday, so I wasn't part of the quirky facts and all that, so I will share my quirky facts with you. Let's start off probably with name. State your name, Nima Boscarino. You can call me Mr. Boscarino, Mr. B. Yo Teach, that's a good one. I do respond to Yo Teach. Yeah, I think that's about it. You can call me Nima, that's my name. Every time a new cohort starts, I think about adopting a new personality. Like a couple cohorts ago, I'm like, I was really committed to the idea of getting like temporary tattoos, like semicolons, just as teardrops, and then just JavaScript on my. That didn't pan out. So I think this cohort I might go with my actual personality. How weird is that? We'll see if that lands. So, what's up? I'm Nima. I am the lead instructor here in Vancouver. Have you met Travis yet? No? Okay. When you meet Travis, can we just have a pact? Can you, I don't know, either hiss or scowl at him? Travis is the dude in there. Same with you, Calgary. If you want, as soon as you see Travis, I think he might be lecturing tomorrow. I don't know. Just write out the words. Just to make him feel welcome. So, I'm lead instructor here. My background's in computer science and in education. A little bit about myself. I like embroidery. What else? I like hip hop. I like a lot of music. And in fact, the easiest way to get to know who I am is to listen to, where'd it go? To listen to Nima's Good Vibes. Public Spotify playlist, over 13 hours of music. So if you need stuff to listen to, Nima's Good Vibes, I got you hooked up. We got everything. Do you like John Mayer? I got John Mayer. Do you like The Roots? Do you like Gucci Mane? That's right, we got Gucci Mane. This is my You Never Know What You're Gonna Get playlist. I recently added some Persian pop music. So yeah. Feel free to follow. I think that's enough about me for today. We're going to get into actually learning about some JavaScript. Real programmers, I don't know if lecturers have told you this yet, real programmers call it JavaScript. Actually don't, it is JavaScript, but if you want extra points from me, then JavaScript will get you that. So let's see, let's do a little check. First question, this is a big question. I like to start off my lectures with a review. And I do, like, just get hyped for me making you do a lot of work during lecture today. First question, this is probably the toughest one. How are you? How are you doing? Good. Doing good? All right. Doing good? Yeah. Excellent. Yeah? Nice. That's, I mean, it is very important for you to kind of continuously check in on yourself. It is very easy. Boot camp is not hard, but it is very easy to like forget that you're a human being. Just like, why am I not coding as well as I should be? Have you eaten today? Like, that's a fairly important thing to do. Go for a walk once in a while. I have to say it. People don't do that very often, and you should. Drink a lot of water. How many of you have a bottle of water with you today? Right there, Hydro Bro. Anyone else? No? Do that. I have to say, I've seen hundreds of students at this point. I've been working at Lighthouse for 2 years. I've seen around 300 students. And I can draw a direct correlation between self-care and success in the program. Right? I want to make it really clear right off the bat, you're not going to enjoy parts of the program. I'm not being like, welcome to boot camp, like, you're going to suffer. No, like, you're just sometimes going to have a hard time. Be realistic with yourself about that. It'll kind of maybe sneak up on you. I want you to come talk to me or talk to David or Travis or any of us about that. If you don't want to talk in person, you can Slack, right? That's all good. Calgary, that goes same for you, right? Like, you can talk to Al, you can talk to Hafiz, the other mentors, or if you want to talk to me, by all means. But I think it is very, very important for you to reach out as soon as you find that you're having any trouble whatsoever, right? Even if it feels silly to you, even if you're like, oh, like maybe I shouldn't be asking for help for this, right? Do so anyways, right? It's just better to reach out. There's a word that, or a phrase that you might have already seen. Whoop. That's what I get for stepping on the cable. There is a phrase that you might have already seen, whether online or whether it's been mentioned in the day one lecture. It's called imposter syndrome. Has anyone seen that phrase before? Cool. Imposter syndrome is a totally real thing, and you will feel it. You will feel it. If you don't feel it during boot camp, you will feel it at some point in your life. I feel imposter syndrome once in a while. I used to feel it every day. Now I'm much better. I feel it 5 days of the week. Saturday and Sunday are my, like, imposter syndrome free time. Here's some common signs of imposter syndrome. Procrastination. I'll point out my signs of when I'm feeling imposter syndrome. I will procrastinate and I will put things off to later. Right? I'll just say, you know what, maybe I can't do it now. Maybe I can do it later, whatever, and I'll just kind of like put it under the rug. That stuff catches up with you a little bit. Right? Other signs of imposter syndrome. Googling actual answers. Right? It is totally fine for you during boot camp to Google for things like syntax. Right? It is totally fine for you to Google for things like concepts. As you're going to see today, and as you're going to see throughout lecture, like in general, lecturers are going to Google a lot of stuff. But I want you to be realistic with yourself, right? And just have a little bit of like self-reflection when you do this, and take yourself through the idea of, am I Googling because I just want to find the answer right now, right? Or am I Googling as part of like my problem-solving process? Oh, this kite. So I found that that's one of them. But honestly, one of the biggest kind of bits of imposter syndrome for me are like not asking for help. Right? I found that when I was really struggling with imposter syndrome, I would like isolate myself quite a bit and not ask. I didn't take boot camp, but I wouldn't ask my mentors, and like when I was working or when I was like in university and stuff. I would just not ask for help for fear of coming off as if I didn't know the particular thing, and I didn't want people to find out that I was an imposter. Right? I want you to like 100% not fall into this trap. Right? Boot camp is centered around the idea of a leapfrog mentality. Right? And to really, in my mind, to really succeed in the format that boot camp offers you, right, you need to go by like the 15-minute rule. Right? Especially at the beginning of boot camp, right? To me, it's very crucial that you get into good working habits right off the bat, right? And what the 15-minute rule is that you work for 15 minutes, right? And if you're stuck on something for 15 minutes, right? If you're stuck, and that means you've Googled it, you've asked your peers for help, right? Then it's time to ask a mentor, right? There's no point in struggling with something for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours here at the beginning of the program. Right? There's going to be plenty of time when you get towards the end of the program and you're working on your bigger projects and your final project and like stuff on your own. There, like you'll likely have to actually dive into some hour-long, multi-hour-long kind of debugging sessions, right? But at the beginning of the program, this is very much about if you're stuck, someone's just going to leapfrog you ahead, right? And you're going to continuously trip over stuff, and that's okay. Right? Again, I say this to like every cohort. The 15-minute rule is kind of important for you to like succeed in the first little bit. Right? There's nothing wrong with just asking for help all the time. Right? Does that sound okay? Cool. Does anyone have any questions about the actual format of boot camp so far? Cool. All right. So we might like circle back to that conversation in the second half of the lecture, but I wanted to get that kind of out of the way. Right. So yeah, that's Nima's welcome to boot camp kind of sitch. If you have any questions, just ask me. Same goes for you, Calgary. So we're gonna hop into question number 2. So question number 2 here, a slightly easier question. We're gonna go. What is JavaScript? What is JavaScript? Any answers to this? It is a programming language. It is a programming language, and that gives us a brand new question. What the heck is a language? Right? What do we need languages for? Right? So languages are used for communication, right? And that's going to be central in understanding how to use JavaScript to its full potential. Right? You're going to find that as you go through boot camp, like there's going to be a bunch of different tools that you learn. Right? JavaScript is one of those tools. It's a programming language, and it's going to be used for communicating directly with a computer. Right? And when we talk about communication, and using a language for communication, one of the questions that pops up is, why are we communicating? Right? Like, why even have a language? Why even have this method of communication? Right? Because by analyzing the why for this communication like even exists, we'll understand a bit more about why that particular language is structured in that particular way. Right? I find that the easiest way for me to learn something, especially when it comes to programming, is to put myself in a place of empathy. Right? To put myself in a place of, okay, if I was the one dealing with this problem originally, right, what would make this easier for me to solve? Right? So over the course of boot camp, I don't know if like other lecturers tend to do this. I've started adopting a format where we'll kind of empathize first, hypothesize on how to fix the thing, and then finally understand the tool. Right? And you can let me know if that process works for you or not. So today, we're going to be exploring a specific part of JavaScript, and that particular part of JavaScript is objects. Right? That particular part of JavaScript is objects, and we're going to take ourselves through dealing with stuff without objects first. Right? And we're going to see the problems that we run into without objects in JavaScript. Right? And then when we bring in objects, we might see how those things, like how whatever objects are, alleviate the problem. Right? So yeah, that's how I'm going to frame this. But right now, we're going to take ourselves through like why we're going to communicate in the first place. So JavaScript is one of many programming languages. Many. There are so many programming languages. it can be a little overwhelming when you first start programming because you think, oh no, do I have to pick the right one? Right? Like, what if I've picked the wrong language? I'm here to tell you that like that doesn't actually make a difference. At the end of this program, you'll know JavaScript really well. You'll know Ruby pretty well. You're going to learn Ruby towards the end of the program. And both those languages are going to give you a launch pad to pretty much understand 90% of useful programming languages. Right? Like 90% of the languages you're going to run into out there, you'll understand even if you haven't programmed in them before. And the reason for that is because they're going to have similar structures to them. And we'll explore what those structures are. So to briefly kind of answer the question of why we're communicating in the first place, I'm going to say that in JavaScript, the reason we're communicating, right, is to tell a computer to perform an action, right? Very, very generic, right? Tell a computer to perform an action, but as I look at this, one of the things that kind of pops out to me as a, I don't know, as part of the tone, I guess, is that this is a command, right? We're saying that this programming language is centered around giving commands to something. And so we'll have to be able to give information to a computer to make maybe decisions, to do things multiple times, right? And to deal with giant amounts of data, stuff like that. Right? So to tell a computer to perform an action, and specifically for JavaScript, if we want to start wrapping our heads around this, is that JavaScript was originally developed to interact with a web page, right, / browser. We're not going to be dealing necessarily with web pages and browsers today, right? But you will start working with that stuff not next week, but the week after. Right? There are some things that you will be doing next week that will actually start bleeding into this idea. Right? I want you to keep in mind that JavaScript was originally developed for working with web pages. Right? Whatever that means right now. It's not going to make a ton of sense right now. Maybe take a note. So JavaScript has a bunch of stuff built into it. Let's pretend right now that we're like at a group tech interview. And I ask you, what does JavaScript have as a language? Does anyone have any kind of beginning answers to that? JavaScript has strings. Excellent. Right? So JavaScript has strings. Anything else? Booleans, arrays. Excellent. Anything else? Functions. Cool. That's what you said, right? Yeah. Numbers. Cool. Conditions. That's a good one. There we go. So we're seeing a lot of these are things that I might say are types of things that you can hold, right? I can hold a string. I can remember a string. A condition is more of like an actual structure built into the language where I can encode some kind of decision-making process. Right? And what else? We'll throw one more in here. Loops. Cool. So loops is another one that's sort of similar to conditions built into the language, and this is going to allow us to iterate over a certain number of things, or iterate a certain number of times. So all these are great. And these are built into the language, and they'll let us kind of build pretty much anything. Really, as long as you've got conditions and loops and a couple of data types, you're fine. Right? We even have functions. That's going to allow us to do a lot of really interesting stuff. We won't talk about functions too much today, but you will tomorrow. Okay? So we'll start writing a little bit of code with these particular things that we have already. And I want us to see how easy or difficult it is to write some particular things. Okay? So you can go make a new file. This one's going to be called, we'll call this friends.js. So I made a JavaScript file, empty. Just take us through, like, if I wanted to run this JavaScript file, what would I do? I could use Node, right? So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to have my terminal open. I like to use my terminal in VS Code, but like just because I don't want to switch between windows. But I can go node and then friends.js, and that will run my thing, right? So that's what you've been doing this week. That's most of what I'm going to do is going to be in here. So usually when I start up like a file or a script, I like to throw in a console log with just some random stuff or a hello world or something, just to make sure that I'm properly connected. Right? And I see my hello world, we're in business. This is good. Okay. So I'll take you through what I want to do with this little demo here. Is I'm going to start making a couple different variables, okay? And then I might want to start asking questions and dealing with stuff on these variables. And what these variables are going to be, a bunch of data about my friends. My friends. Obviously, I can't type. Bunch of data about my friends, and then I might do things such as like print out their names, okay? Print out their favorite colors, right? Right? Things like that. So let's say I have, let's be unrealistic here. Let's say I have 3 friends. What? Who has 3 friends? Oh man, not you at the end of boot camp. So let's say I have 3 friends. Now I want to keep these friends somewhere. With a programming language like JavaScript, whenever I have some data and I want to remember it, right, I'm going to need to do some work to tell JavaScript to remember that thing. Because here's the thing, if I just go, let's say I have a friend named Bradlina, right? Good name. I've written this right now as a string. If I run this script, never printed out Bradlina, that's fine. And with a programming language, like I'm going to need to explicitly say, keep that value in a variable somewhere, right? Memorize it so that you can use it later, right? So we've been doing that. I can go, okay, maybe const friend1 equals Bradlina. And what I can do later on is as many times as I want, I can go console.log friend1, friend1, friend1. Right? That's a legal thing for me to do. Right? No one's confused by this at the moment. Cool. So got a bunch of Bradlinas. Right? Let's make another friend. Friend2. Friend2, Christopheretta. Right? Another good name. We'll make a friend3 as well. Jim Othena. And, well, you know what? I'll treat myself. 4 friends. Cthulhu. So, I've got my 4 friends here. Bradlina, Christopheretta, Jim Othena, and then the ancient one, Cthulhu. Just the gang, just hanging out. And I can print out each of our names, and that's totally fine. So, friend 1, 2, 3, and 4. Boop, boop. And I got everyone's names. Bradlina, Christopheretta, Jim Othena, and Cthulhu. Now, as I work forward on whatever project I'm working on, like maybe I set myself a new goal where I want to, for each person, print out hello, comma, and then the person's name. At the moment, there is, a fairly simple kind of change that I can make to these 4 lines to do that. Right? So if I wanted to say hello Bradlina and hello Christopheretta, Jim Othena, and Cthulhu, I could, for each of these places here. Oh, did you know that in VS Code, if you hold down the Option key, you can drop as many cursors as you want? Did you know that? Stuff is beast. Real programmers. I need another person on this keyboard. No. So here, I'm just going to toss in for each of them, hello, comma, and then the friend name. Okay, fair? So I've got hello, Bradlina, Christopheretta, Jim Othena, and Cthulhu, and everything's good. It's like I don't need that space there. Now, I'm running into a problem right off the bat. Say, by some miracle, I made a new friend. Like, what? New friend? Oh man. And I also want to greet this new friend. Right, right now I'm kind of bottlenecked by something I have to do. Right? Which is what? Like, what is the problem? I have to write all that code again, right? I have to go ahead and make another one that says friend 4, turn this into friend 5. Anybody got some friends? No friends? Oh man. What's your name? Eli? Does anyone want to make a friend for Eli? Noah et. Like that? Sure. Noah et. And so I might go hello and friend 5, and now I've got Noah et in there. But again, I'm running into that issue where I need to duplicate a bunch of code. Programmers are lazy. Programmers are lazy in that like they want to write as little code as possible. Also want to make the code as easy to change as possible. And, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with this right now, but presumably I don't want to lock myself to having to make 1,000 console log statements for 1,000 people. Right? So you've already discovered one kind of way around this. Right? What can I do to solve this problem? What's that? I could use an array. Right? So I'm looking at my problem statement here. I'm looking at the thing that I'm running into trouble with. And I think back on the things that JavaScript has. Right? So I could take myself back through the list of stuff that JavaScript has, and I might say, okay, well, can a string help me here? Doesn't really feel like it. Maybe I could think about it for a while, but I don't feel like a string might help me. Booleans, again, not necessarily. But arrays are built for lists of things. Right? So over time, what's going to happen? This might not, honestly, it might not happen in the first week. It might not happen in the second week, but it'll happen eventually. You're going to start associating specific tasks and specific words with specific parts of a programming language. Right? It'll happen over time. Right? So here, I know now that arrays are good for lists of things, so that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, well, for all my friends, instead of having this like that, I might go const just my whole arrays of friends, const my whole array of friends, and I might put in information like we got Bradlina, we've got Christopheretta, we've got Jimathena, we've got Cthulhu, and we've got Noah et. Now I have this this thing that collects all my information together. Right? I think it's like okay to just tell someone how an array works, right? Or how a function works or an object works, right? You're going to find that as these concepts get more difficult, right, you'll want to be in a place where you can understand what would happen if you didn't have that thing, right? So here right now I have a friend, and I can no longer do this. I can no longer just write friend 1, but what can I do? I could use a loop, right? I could totally use a loop. Now, one of the things that I could do maybe before I use a loop is I might think about how like arrays on their own can be used, maybe not in conjunction with a loop. So I might do something like friends and then square bracket to index a particular item in there, right? I take myself through this and I go, okay, well, that way I'm able to get Bradlina. This way I'm able to get someone else, Noah et. If I change the number to 4, right? So evidently, right, like as long as I can control this particular value, right, then I can control what gets printed out. So that takes us to the loop, right? Because a loop is something that you can use to control a value over a specific range, right? If I want to take the value from 1 to then 2, then 3, then 4, or maybe I want to take it from -5 to -4 to -3, like just between a range, okay? A loop is going to allow me to do that. And here what I want to do is potentially take a value from 0 all the way to the maximum value. Right? So I might write one style of loop here, for, right? And there's the C style for loop. Okay? This isn't the only style of for loop. I think you've already started exploring other ones through the prep work. Right? We're just going to do a little bit of review on it. the C-style for loop is going to let me say this is the beginning of the value. This is the maximum amount that I'm willing to get to, right? Not inclusive if I do this, right? So I might say 10 or whatever. And then this is how I'm going to increment it every time, right? So I could choose, if I wanted to say that I gets incremented by 4, right? With this weird syntax, I plus equals 4. But if you only want to increment it by 1 every time, then it's going to be I plus plus. So what I want to do is go from all the way from 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, and then not including 5. So I might say something while I is less than 5. And I'll throw my console log in there. And now I have this value of I that I can use instead of the number. Right? So we've seen this, and this is, oh no. I used const by accident. You can't use const here. Boop. Should have been the let. Right? So in fact, that's what the thing even told me. You can't assign to a constant variable. So the way I've written the C-style for loop here, this needs to be let. So let's try this again. And I got all my friends. Radlina, Christopheretta, Jimitina, Cthulhu, Noah, Et. If I wanted to make this even more dynamic, in the sense that right now I have to guess the number 5. Right? But we've explored through the prep work and stuff like that, being able to say friends.length. Cool. Now, I want us to look at this. And are we happy with it? I hate it. I hate it. Oh, this is the worst. Oh, man. I gotta say, this is hot garbage. This is so bad. Because what the heck does 0 mean? Why? I even saw, what's your name over there? No, behind you. Yeah. Yeah. What's that? Hilda. I saw you doing like the counting as well, right? We shouldn't need to do that. We should not need to think this much, because all we want to do is say, listen, dude, like just print out hello to everyone, right? This is a place where a programmer will look at this and say the design of the language itself is broken, right? Maybe not broken, but it's just not what I need right now. This feels like it feels like I'm trying to build a house with like a screwdriver and a plastic spoon. You'll get there eventually, but this is not the appropriate tool for this. So there are other ways to build a for loop, right? This is fine, but again, my particular qualms with it are, what the heck does this mean? This is just confusing. This thing here, sure, why not bring in some arcane symbols to have this work? And then ultimately, the cherry on top is friends square bracket I. Right? To someone who doesn't know how to program, this is the most confusing thing in the world. Right? So I might at this point then make the decision to use a different style for loop. This is a for of loop. Does anyone want to take me through what a for of loop looks like? Mm-hmm. There you go. There you go. So for Calgary, for of is a new feature in ES6, right? And the for of is going to let me go for const or let if I want to. And then I get to say for const friend of friends. Okay. This might not be the first thing somebody thinks of when they're inventing a language, but at least I think it's fairly, like quite a bit more intuitive than this mess over here. Right? The C-style for loop has its place. Right? But if I'm just trying to loop over an array and I want to do something with every element of the array, the for of has got me. It's got me easy. Because now in here, I don't need to worry about the square brackets. I don't need to worry about any of that stuff. And I go console.log. Hello. And then friend. Okay. And the nice thing here is that I don't need to worry about array indexing anymore. Okay. I don't need to worry about that stuff. Okay. I know you know loops. And I know you know arrays. Okay. And I know some of you might maybe already feel comfortable with objects. The reason I'm taking this detour is to show you that there are things that exist in a language, right? And some of them aren't appropriate necessarily for the particular problems that you're trying to solve, right? And if you feel a lot of friction, when you're trying to write code, it's a place to stop and say, am I using this programming language the way it's meant to be used, right? Or even at a more general level, am I using this tool the way it's meant to be used? Right? And I want you to kind of reflect on that at every point during boot camp. Right? If you're having a lot of trouble with an assignment, right, you might not be doing it right. Because at the end of the day, programming is a cushy job. That's why y'all are here. Just want to make that money. No, some people, find empowerment through tech and whatever. No, that's why I'm here. But at the end of the day, it's not supposed to be super difficult. Here we go. Bradlina, Christopheretta, Jimithina, Cthulhu, and Noah Et. So we're going to take this mindset as we launch ourselves into a new set of problems that are posed by my friends here. Right? Does anyone have questions about what we just did right now? Cool? Cool. So it's 10:39. What we're going to do is, I think we're going to write a little bit more code, pose a question, and then take a break. And then we'll come back and we'll launch into less of like motivation about things and just more, this is how you do this and this is how you do this and whatever. Right? That's the way I tend to structure my lectures. Cool. And it doesn't look like there's any questions from Calgary, but Calgary, anytime you want, feel free to write stuff in Slack and I will get right to you. So what we have right now is we have a pretty scalable way to print out somebody's name. Right? And I'm going to say scalable in two ways. It's scalable for one because as I add more friends in my list, my loop is able to handle that. Right? But it's also scalable in the sense that when I show this code to a programmer for the first time, their eyes don't start bleeding. Right? They know how to deal with this, it's not scary, and they can probably add some more features. So I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to say that down here I want to print out the favorite color of each friend. Right? So I want to see something like, this person's favorite color is color. So there are a couple different ways that I can attack this problem. And one way that I could attack this is, let me just be up here. What's that? Add another array. Genius. What's your name? Chengwen. Awesome. You got 15 Nima bucks right there. Spend them wisely. I might have another array called colors, right? Or I might have all of each person's favorite colors. So here's one. Bradlina loves the color red. Christopheretta loves the color pale violet, right? Jimithina loves the color azure. Azure is a color, right? It's a pretty color. Cthulhu, what's Cthulhu's favorite color? Chartreuse. And the Noah Et's favorite color is void. Just the absence of color. So what I have here are two different lists. If somebody wants to find Bradlina's favorite color, I will have to refer to a secondary list. Right? Not the worst thing in the world. Right? And as long as we agree on that, and as long as we make that kind of like our standard and our protocol, we're going to have a good time. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a loop. Print out their favorite colors. So let me just say console.log favorite color time. Just so that we see this pop up in the terminal. And I want in here, say something like this friend's favorite color is yada yada. Can I do that as I've structured it right now with a for of? See, Eli, you're shaking your head. Why is that? Yeah, so the issue here is I need to loop through two different arrays. I need to loop through two different arrays, so I need to keep track of the index. on both of those arrays. So a for of not going to let me do that, or at least not by default. It's just going to give me the element out of the first one. Yeah. I could store the colors as a second index inside. Do you want to take me through what that would look like? And do you want to repeat that again? Mm-hmm. Oh, there we go. That's a great solution to this. So I'm actually gonna I'm gonna say that we'll do that right after we do it this way, because that's a really good way of doing this. So array of arrays. Your name is Robert. Sweet. So for Calgary, Robert had an idea of maybe having an array of arrays. We'll look at what that looks like in a minute, but we will come back to that. So for the moment, though, as we stick to the structure of data that we have, right? Like, say we're given that structure, right? And I can't change it. Like, I've had that imposed on me. That has consequences on the code that I'm going to write. Right? So here I'm realizing that I need the index. I might go back to writing that C-style for loop. Right? This might be a place where I use that. Or there's another kind of for loop, just like how there's the for of, there's a for in. Have you seen the for in before? Right? So the for of is going to get me all of the items, whereas the for in is going to get me the index. Right? I think of in as being short for index. So I'm going to find right now is if I go console log index, when I do a for const index in friends, what I'm going to find is that I get back 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So it's like a cleaner version of that C-style for loop. Right? So what I can do here is maybe for each friend, and let me do const the particular friend. I might do friends and grab them by the index. Right? I might do the particular color and go colors and grab that by the index. And now what I might be able to do is go friend and print out also the color for that friend. Right? Is there any question about this before I run the code? Yes. That's a great. Yeah, that's yeah. Do you want to say that louder? Yeah. 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 There we go. Right. So we're already seeing that like the structure of this is kind of running into issues. You've already done some reading about object. It might be more efficient to use an object in this situation. Right. But let's imagine that objects don't exist. Right. If an object doesn't exist, then I'm going to have to leverage maybe having multiple arrays at the moment and keeping in mind how I'm going to structure this stuff, right? The answer to that, and for Calgary who didn't hear your question, isn't it more efficient to use objects? Absolutely. That's 16 NEMA bucks right there. But as I run this code right now, what I'm going to get is for each person, Bradlina, red, Jimithina, azure, Noah, et, the void. This stuff is coming through. Right? But I'm having to do that extra legwork of keeping in mind how I'm structuring the thing. So just to really quickly touch on Robert's point, which was maybe restructuring that double, or like those two arrays into an array of arrays. We'll see what this might look like. Friends improved. I'm just going to bring over all the code here. You will receive all this code. What I'm doing at the moment is I'm getting rid of all the stuff from before, the hello friends stuff. We're just going to have this be the array of arrays. So something that I might do is instead of having a single friends array of strings and then a single array of colors, Robert's suggestion was, how about I make each entry Bradlina and then red, right? Or Christopheretta and pale violet, Jimithina and azure. How do you pronounce this last one? Chartreuse? Chartreuse. Did I spell it right? Yeah. Yeah? Nice. And then Noah, et, and void. What I'm doing now here is my friends, all of the data for each friend is collected into one place, right? And I've leveraged what JavaScript's given me, which is arrays, and the fact that I can make arrays of arrays to collect that information together. And this gives me potentially an easier way of accessing the stuff, in the sense of, as I'm looping through my friends, then I'm able to get the name and the color at the same time. And the problem for this is there's an like an added level of kind of cognitive load, right? To look at this and say, okay, now I'm dealing with an array of arrays. I'm barely comfortable with arrays as they are. Okay, maybe I'll have to wrap my head around that. I don't want you to stress too much about this as it is at the moment. We'll take a look at it. But for something like that, what I might do is I might write a for, might still write a for of loop, right? Where as I'm going through each friend, the friend, let's say the friend name and the friend color, the friend name is going to be exactly index 0, whereas the friend color is going to be index 1. Right? And this is something that, you know, you could take yourself through slowly and console log stuff and explore what this looks like. Right? I'm not going to do that right now just because I don't want to make you watch me console log stuff right now. But now what I can have is my friend name and my friend color, and I've gotten away with having this all smashed into one array. And friends improved. So I got that. Right? Again, this is like one other way of doing this. I don't want us to focus too much on this necessarily right now. But are there questions about the code that's up on the screen? Can you give me a thumbs up if you have no questions? All right, fair. So what we're gonna do is, what was your name again? Bahar? Bahare. All right, so we're gonna focus on Bahare's question, which is, wouldn't it be better for us to use objects? And I go, oh man, you figured out the name of the lecture. Absolutely, right? At a certain point, a programmer says, hey, you know what, this is kind of ridiculous. Because as soon as I tell you that I also want to add in another value for each friend, such as their age, right? So Bradlina is 82. Christopheretta is 67. Jim Athena is -2. And Cthulhu is one of the ancient ones, a billion years old or whatever, right? All this stuff. In my previous structure, what I would have had to do is make a whole new array, right? In this friends improved structure, what I can do is technically just add a new entry in here, right? That's legal. But I start running into trouble. When I think about the fact that like now this array has to have a particular structure to it, and I need to document that structure because otherwise I'm going to have problems. Right? For example, if I just look just at this, right, like just at the stuff that I've zoomed in on, without any other context, I cannot tell what friend 0 is. I can't tell. Is it a number? Is it a string? Is it an array? Is it a function? I don't know. Right? Is it the person's name? Is it the person's best friend? Is it the person's favorite Kanye West album? Right? Right? Who knows? I have no idea. So JavaScript is going to give us another tool that we can leverage to make our code slightly more legible, right? To bundle up our data. And yes, it is the object. So are there any questions at the moment about the motivation behind this? What's that? Okay. So what we'll do friends objects.js. And it being 1052, what I'll do is I will write out the code. We'll take a look at it. We'll go, wow. And then we'll take a break. Right? And when we come back, we'll talk about the mechanics of objects, how they work, what are some maybe sticking points and stuff that I recommend kind of keeping an eye out for as you're working through your assignments. And so first thing I'm going to do with my friends is that I might start off by saying that my friends is going to be an object. Right? Heads up, this is not the only answer to structuring this with an object. Right? There are many answers to this, but I'm going to do it in this particular way. Right? I want you to think about what other kinds of structures I could use for this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say that for my friends, I'm going to save them each as a name, such as Jim Athena. And then I'm going to have Jim Athena point to something that says name, Jim Athena, and color red. And then if I wanted somebody else in here, I could go, what was my name? The other one? I got them backwards. Bradlina and then Christopheretta. I'm a bad friend. So Bradlina, Christopheretta. So name, Christopheretta, and then color was pale violet. Right? And then we're going to say for right now, etc. Right? I've decided arbitrarily that I want to try and structure my stuff this way, and we're going to see what effect this is going to have on my code. Right? As I start writing my loops afterwards. Just to kind of show you that there are other ways to do it, another way for me to do it would be const friends, and we'll also explore this a little bit. Have an array, and specifically have an array of objects. Right? And we'll explore bit by bit what the differences between me doing these two things are going to be. Right? All I want us to do at the moment, though, is to just kind of look at this and go, oh, I kind of get it. We suddenly have a really bad British accent. For every one of these entries, the name is associated with something, and the color is associated with something else. Maybe I can't write the syntax, but I understand the appeal. Right? Cool? Cool. Right, so what we're going to do is, timed it perfectly with them, which is cool. We'll take treat yourself. Take a 12-minute break. How does that feel? I'll throw 2 extra ones right on there. Come back at 10:08. Is that how time works? 11:08? Yeah, come back yesterday. Come back earlier today. So 11:08 for Calgary. That's gonna be 12:08, and then we'll wrap it up with a shorter second half. Cool? Cool, cool. Alrighty. Calgary, just let me know when the audio and the video is going through for you, and then we'll get started. Put up. Usually when we go on break, especially if there's like the Calgary cohort, I'll leave up fish or something for them. Nice. All right, Sam says we're in. Good stuff. So when we left off at the end of this first half, what we'd gone through was most of the motivation behind why we have a data structure that allows us to collect a bunch of data together. Right? So we saw that if we didn't have, or we saw that like with just arrays on their own, we need to do some extra legwork to put together something that collects, you know, like our friends and their colors and their ages and their whatevers, right? Their favorite foods. We're going to say that objects are brought in to solve that particular problem. Objects are going to be used for associating values. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bit of a departure from this friends example. Okay? I'm going to take a small departure from it. And we'll make our way back to it at the end of the lecture. Okay? We'll do some other stuff because there's only so long that I can say Bradley and Christopheretta before they start feeling like real people to me. And for my own health. No. We'll move our way over to just dealing with objects as they are. So let's just state that objects are a particular type of thing in JavaScript. Right? There's booleans, there's numbers, there's strings. Objects are just another thing. Right? And what objects are particularly useful for is associating keys to values. Right? Keys to values, keys to values. Meaning, let's say that I want to start off by making an object called meal. Right? Maybe I want to associate each part of my meal, meaning a meal may have an appetizer. Right? An appetizer, you could. Anybody got a favorite appetizer? You got a favorite appetizer? Kale salad. All right, so our kale salad, followed by our main. Maybe got a favorite main. What's that? Gourmet sabzi, yeah. So you got gourmet sabzi. Yeah. Did I write gourmet correct? Yeah, cool. All right, wait, how many Persians do we have in this cohort? Yeah, what's up? All right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean here's there's an H at the end of gourmet sabzi, but it's like a stew. It's like a herb stew. It's the best. Very good. Gourmet sabzi. All right, so we got gourmet sabzi. We might have a drink. Anybody know what doog is? Huh? Yeah. How do you spell doog in English? Yeah. Doog, Persian drink or no? Yeah, doog. D-O-O-G-H. Yeah. So we're gonna drink doog for our meal. Doog is a Persian yogurt-based beverage. It's good. It's okay. It's like neat. You just try it. So we'll drink some doog, and then we might have a dessert. And for dessert, I'm gonna have just a Pop-Tart. Treat yourself. Well, classy Pop-Tart. So this is nice because I get to collect all this information about this one thing all in one place. Usually, objects are useful when I have to deal with bundles of stuff. Okay? And I find that food or like a meal is the easiest way for me to get that in my head. Right? Because I'm collecting a bunch of stuff together, and I would like to keep this stuff together in one place. Right? I'd like to keep it together in one place because I would like to be able to ask, what is the appetizer? So we'll be able to do several things with objects. We'll be able to create objects. We'll be able to add values into objects. Right? We'll be able to get values from objects. Right? Those are the things that we're going to explore today. Right? So I'll make a little bit of a cheat sheet for you. If I want to create an object, creation. To create an object, you can create an empty object by going const or let or whatever it is. We did meal, and you can have just the curly braces to make an empty object. Right? And this is fine. You got an empty object that's got nothing in it at the moment. Right? Or I can go const meal and create an object that already has some stuff in it. So that's the meal that we have right here. Const meal. Now, putting stuff into objects is fine. Right? Putting stuff into objects is fine if we're making it as we create it. I'm going to take this stuff. I'm just going to go into Node. And I'm going to paste that line. So the meal, appetizer, whatever, I've just entered it into Node. Because I want to play around with this a little bit. Now, when I want to access values inside of objects, right, there are two different methods for doing this. Right? This is my blazing hot take. Hot takes with Nima. The only good syntax is the square bracket syntax. Appetizer. With the square bracket syntax, I will say, here is my object. Square bracket says, this is what I want to get from it. And then it's important for us to see, what do I put inside of the square bracket? A string, right? That's really important. Right? We put a string in there because I can't just go meal.appetizer. Or, oh, no, sorry, shoot. I can't just go meal square bracket appetizer without square brackets. So it'll get confused. Right? The square brackets are going to want a string. And that string is going to be the key that I want to get the associated value. Right? There is a second form of syntax, which is the dot notation that I accidentally started writing out. Honestly, I don't like the dot notation. Right? Hot take. I think it's annoying that there are two ways of doing the same thing. Right? So here I go, meal appetizer. I can go dot. Notice that when I do a dot, I don't put quotes around the word. So my recommendation for you is that as you're starting off with objects and as you're starting off with JavaScript, try your best to just stay with square brackets and strings. Right? I think they make the most sense. You're going to find that code online starts using dot notation. Right? Pick it up as you kind of go along, but don't feel pressured to use it. Right? Like, don't feel pressured to use it right now. The reason I point that out is because, like, people get very confused about nested objects. Okay, we're going to play around with nested objects in a second. People get very confused about dealing with, sometimes you'll see code that uses a mixture of both square brackets and dots. And it just feels like a lot. You can get everything done with just square brackets. In fact, you're going to find that there are programming languages out there that don't have dot notation. There are programming languages that only have square bracket notation. And JavaScript just decided, I'm quirky, let's put in dot notation. Okay. So that's why we're here. Okay. So for the rest of today's lecture, like, I'm going to pretty much just use square brackets. So if I want to access something inside of it, say I want to access the main the meal square bracket main like that. Why is my hot take on? So I think I'm going to be honest, like, I think a lot of people have trouble with objects really early on in the program, and they just try to, like, memorize how to deal with them. And part of that for me, what I've noticed is will be after the first couple weeks, and people still get confused about the difference between the square brackets and the dot. But the thing is, the dots are just a limited version of the square bracket notation, right? And we're going to see that there's some things that I can do with square bracket notation that I can't do with dot notation. Dot notation just looks pretty. That's really about it. But it doesn't give me very much. You have a hot take too? Mm-hmm. Cool. That's a great kind of way of looking at it. I'm gonna repeat that for Calgary, which is Robert mentioned that the dot notation can be nice if maybe we're talking about properties that are like static, and then when we get to something that's dynamic, we might use square brackets. Actually, that's a good point. Maybe we'll talk about that towards the end. Dot versus square for dynamics. But I'll leave an explanation of that further towards the end. For right now, I just really want to say that like with a lot of the stuff that you're going to be learning so much in boot camp, and you kind of want to do yourself the benefit of like not overwhelming yourself. For me, what that means is learning the things that are kind of like necessary, right? And being able to tell yourself, okay, I don't actually need to know this right now. That's not the same as procrastination. That's just being intelligent about like what you can take in and what you can't. If you find that you're having trouble conceptually with objects, one of the things that you can do is just limit yourself to only using the square brackets, right? And until you feel comfortable with working with objects in the first place, like the mechanics of it, adding stuff to an object, updating an object, creating objects, things like that. And then once you're comfortable with that, then if you want, you can bring in the dot notation and you'll have a breeze. But if you try to understand both syntaxes at the same time, I find that I have a hard time. Right? But by all means, like give it a shot if you want. So this is for me for creating objects. If I want to edit values inside of an object, or let's go actually with get values from an object. I've already started talking about the square bracket notation. So I might do something like meal square bracket main. That's going to get me the main, right? Or if I do meal square bracket dessert, that's going to get me the dessert. Right? And it's important to see that this here is a string. Right? And like I said, we can also do meal.main if we wanted to. Right? Now the nice thing about having these square brackets here is that we're saying that this thing here is a string. Right? And it being a string means that we can take other values and put that in there. Right? For example, say that I have a variable, const, I don't know, thing, const thing. And this variable here is going to be a string. This variable is going to be drink. Okay. What this means is I can go meal square bracket thing. Now as I look at my object, my meal, there is no key called thing in here, right? Well, what JavaScript's going to do is it's going to evaluate what thing is, so it's going to be drink, and then it'll look up the drink in the meal. Yes? Question. Awesome. So Lath says, can you explain how we can enter the object's value as an array instead of string? Absolutely. So let me put that down here. Other values inside of objects. We'll take a look at that in just a second. So if I have meal, I can square bracket and then use a dynamic value. Right? And what Robert was alluding to is that I can have, maybe a for loop or something like that, where this particular value might change over time. And I might want to be able to use it to access things from inside of the object. Now, where this becomes kind of curious is actually getting into what Lath is mentioning, which is right now my object, all it has is associations between keys and strings. Okay, between keys and strings, but it's totally possible for me to associate keys to numbers. A very expensive meal. This very high quality Pop-Tart. $23,000 for this Pop-Tart. So I can go total prices, whatever. And the thing is, with an object, I can legally associate a key with anything I want. Anything I want. You dream it, you can do it. So here's another one. The key A points to the Boolean false. Right? There's another one. The key B points to the array 1, 2, 3. Right? Then I'll do yet another one. The key C. What's the wildest thing that a key in an object could point to? Another object. What? Impossible. Yes. Right? No one's ever done this. Yes, this is like absolutely possible. We can have nested objects. So C might point to an object that might have a property called D. Yeah, D, and D points to another one, and D point E. Oh my God, and F, which is maybe a little smiley face. Right? Worth it. And you know what we might do is we might try to get this to print out the smiley face, right, and see if we can make our way all the way inside of there. So let me just copy this whole meal thing as it is. Whoops. And copy it as it is, and I'm just going to put it inside of Node again. Oh man, we're in angry Node mode now. So I'm going to paste that in. Oh no, I clicked the wrong button. Here we go. So I'm just going to paste that inside of Node so that I have my meal. And again, you'll have the code in a second. And we explored that we could go meal, appetizer. That gets me the kale salad. If I want the word false here, meal A, that gets me false. Notice that when I write this thing, it evaluates to the thing on the right-hand side. Right? It's as if I was getting the thing on the right-hand side. So if I do meal square bracket B, whoops, meal square bracket B, what is that going to get me? It's going to get me an array. Right? It's going to get me that array of 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Meaning, I can do stuff with this array, right? If I go meal square bracket B, I can do things like meal square bracket B dot length, because that is a thing that I can do with arrays. Right? So I want you to try and treat when you're grabbing a value from an object as if it's that actual value. Right? You can do stuff with it. I could save this. Const array equals meal square bracket B. Oops. You can save it. And now I have my array. And I can do things like array.length and yada yada. But the really curious one for us is C. In fact, let me bring up meal again. That's the really curious one for us. We have nested in so far that Node doesn't even want to show us everything. It just says E points to an object. It's like it's an object. We'll have to go deeper if we want to see the whole thing. So if I go meal C, what is that going to get me? Which object? The one with D in it, right? It's going to get me this object here, right? Let me highlight that properly. This object right there. So meal C. If I wanted this object here, the object with the property E, what would I have to write instead? I haven't heard much from this side of the room. What do we have to get? Say that again? Brackets D. Okay, so we could try that. So meal bracket C should get us this part, and then bracket D should get us the thing inside of it, so this part here. Right? And you could try that out. Meal bracket C bracket D gets me the E object. And then if I wanted to go even deeper and get the F, like the object that has F in it, I would go meal bracket C bracket D bracket E. And now if I want that string, the smiley face string, I'm going to have to go deeper. meal bracket C, bracket D, bracket E, bracket F. I got my smiley face. I want you to try to think of objects as folders. Right? When you think of them as folders and going deep into a folder, deep into another folder to grab the particular thing. So if I don't go all the way in, what I get is the actual folder itself. I don't get the value. Does that sound okay? Yes. That's a great question. So the question here is, it has to do with the reference to the particular values. So if I have meal, and my meal points, it's got B that points to this array, 1, 2, 3. The question is, when I get, and if I got this right, if I go array equals meal B to get that, whoops. Oh, I already have that array, so let me just go const the B array. If I have my B array and I change this one, does it change the one in the object? That's what you're asking, right? So here is the one inside of the object, and here is the one outside. I could play around with it, like B array. One of the things that you can do with objects is push arrays is push values to them. So I might go B array push, and maybe I want to push the number 345 in. When I check my B array, it is now 1, 2, 3, and 345. And I could check meal, and I'll see that it is now 1, 2, 3, and 345. Okay? So JavaScript has made a decision that when I take an array out of an object, that array actually still lives in the object. So if I change it outside, it'll change it inside of the object as well. And that's somewhere we're looking at something called reference versus value. And I think that that's what we're going to end. Yeah, I think we're going to end the lecture on that note. Like we're going to cycle back to that idea. So if what I just did right now is confusing, that's fine. We're gonna cycle back to it and end the lecture on that note. Just to go back to our cheat sheet real quick. We said that these are ways of getting values. If I want to get something that's nested, right, I might go meal, and then we went C, D, E, F. So meal square bracket C, D, E, F. And this here is totally legal for us, right, to get values inside of nested objects. Okay. This is one place where somebody might say that, oh, dot notation is nice, because it might look nicer for me to go meal.c.d.e.f. Right? Nicer? Maybe. And if you like this, like, that's fine. I won't kick you out of the boot camp. Get out of here! It's fine. But again, my suggestion is if you're having trouble with objects, to fall back to just the square bracket notation. So this is for us for getting values from an object. Are there questions about any of these things that are up at the moment? Well, y'all are geniuses. Cool. Let me put this one in your court. How do I update values in an object? So say I want to update my drink. So, change values. Say instead of my drink being Doog, I wanted it to be something else. Like a nice, refreshing Mountain Dew. The programmer's drink of choice. You ever gone to any... I don't know if y'all have gone to like programming events or anything yet, but culture's changing a little bit over time. But through university, there was like every hackathon or event that I would go to was just pizza and Mountain Dew, and there's only so many of those that you can go to before it's like I don't like Mountain Dew. But yeah, let's say that I want to change my Dew to Mountain Dew for my drink? How do I do that? Right. So meal, square bracket, drink, and then the important part here is the equals. Right? Yeah. Quotes? Like these quotes here? Oh, it equals like that? Exactly. So meal, drink equals, and then I might say good old Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew. Right. Well, you know what? I don't want to get flagged for copyright infringement. A Mountain Dew. So this is syntax that the people who made JavaScript chose. You're going to be working with stuff as you go forward that are collections of stuff. Some of those collections might be objects. Some of them might not be. Okay? Changing values with objects, they've chosen a nice syntax for it. Okay? They could have very easily chosen a syntax that said set new value. Meal, drink, Mountain Dew. Okay? I want you to imagine that like this syntax could exist. It's not the syntax that we have, but it could have existed. And if you go to a different language, that might be what it is. Right? And you realize that like this syntax here didn't just fall from the sky. Right? So if it doesn't feel very intuitive to you, that's okay. It's something that like a human being came up with, and you can come up with something else if you want. Right? But it looks nice because it seems like assigning a value inside of a variable. Which is nice. How do I add a value? Right? So let's say I want to add a value such as I want to add a location for my meal, like where I'm actually eating this meal. How do I add a location? So meal bracket location, right? And then what I'm going to do? Then I have to assign it to something. So my location is going to be Lighthouse Labs. And again, the thing that's nice about this, and this might not be the case with other languages, is that JavaScript has chosen a syntax for changing values and adding values that is identical. Right? It is straight up identical. There is no location in my object at the moment, but by going meal square bracket location, what I get to do is assign a value into there. Right? Some other languages may not let you do that. Right? This is nice because if I go into here, my meal doesn't have a location. Meal square bracket location equals Lighthouse Labs. And now for my meal, I also have a location. Right? What I do recommend that you do is you hop into Node and you do these kinds of exercises and you just kind of add stuff, edit stuff, create objects that are new. What you pointed out with the, what if I change an array outside of it, does it change it inside? Those are all things that are worth kind of tinkering with and seeing what you end up with. Right? But I will give you one last kind of pointer with that. So getting values, changing values, adding value. Like I said, each of these things can be done with dot notation if you're just straight up writing the key. So this might be meal dot drink, right? That works out fine. Right? Or this one here, you could do it with meal dot location, and that works out fine as well. Cool? Yep. That's a great question. So can we remove a value from the object itself? You can. There is, you know, we'd have to like Google it and go, okay, how do we remove a value from object in JavaScript? Hot tip: when you Google stuff, my recommendation is to Google stuff as a question. It can make quite a bit of a difference when you're trying to find answers. So I'll usually go like, how do I remove a value from an object in JavaScript? Thanks, Google. And then usually it'll take me to the correct stuff. The reason that I recommend writing stuff in the form of a question, you can or not do this if you don't want to, but there are so many people that have like been learning to code, that other people have had exactly the same question as you at any point in this program. If you write it in the form of a question, you'll likely find Stack Overflow or blog posts that were written in like the same tone as what you wrote the thing in, and I just find that neat. So yeah, we're gonna be like we would be using the delete operator, and what delete lets you do is if you want to delete a particular property, you would go delete in that property. So say in my case, it's just slightly out of scope, which is why I'm like glossing over it. But say I have my meal that has a location. If I go delete meal location, it'll say true, like yes, we managed to do it. And then if I go meal, there's no more location. Right? And if you try to delete meal location again, it'll just continue giving you true. It's okay with it. There's no meal location. Right? What happens if I try to go meal and then something that doesn't exist? What happens? Maybe false? What's that over there? Undefined. Yeah, so what I get is undefined. Right? JavaScript is pretty lax about there is no such thing as it's just not in there. It's fine. Right? Or if I do meal location, since I just deleted it, meal location does not exist. Right? If you try to do stuff with something that doesn't exist, like with something that's undefined, so say meal look, and then I go square bracket on this and try to do stuff, what's going to happen? So here, for Calgary, the suggestion was that it might create it. It's a good idea, but the thing is, I'm never saying to assign a value, right? The way that JavaScript's going to interpret this is it's going to try and figure out what this is, and then out of that, it's going to try and figure out what this is. But the thing is, this here is undefined, right? We just saw that that's undefined. And if I try to read something out of undefined, it's going to tell me, hey, I can't read the property this of undefined. You're going to run into this particular error a ton. You might have already seen this. Has anyone seen can't read property of undefined? Yeah? There we go. I have that just on my shoulder blade at this point. Like, this is, yeah? Oh, and Calgary has a question there. Sweet. Not need quotes from it. Sweet. So you will run into this error many times, and I want you to know that what we would do at this point is maybe take out that last one and see what we're getting. And if that's undefined, then we know that our problem is there, and we can work our way backwards a little bit. Let me just take a look at the question here. So the value, so this is a question by Lath. Const person with a phone number, and the phone number is an array of 3 numbers. Console log person phone number gets us that. Console log is person number an instance of object? I mean, we could try running all this. Oh, you say that. The value of phone number key is an array, but why the console? So generally, I don't tend to use. There is an instance of thing, I guess. Oh, instance lowercase of. There is an instance of thing. So if I say is a string instance of string, I guess. Instance of, oh, it needs to be written out as like straight up the word string like that. Like, I think the reason I'm confused by this question is I don't tend to use the instance of thing ever. There is a type of, so you can go like something is a type of string if you want. So I might go type of, and then this thing here is going to give me string, and I find that that's kind of easier to work with. If you have an object and you say what is the type of that, so type of and then an object. Whoops, object. It'll say object. But then type of is kind of broken because if I go type of an array, what should this give me? Well, it gives me object, right? And that's kind of annoying. So arrays have their own built-in array is array thing to do it. Laith, my answer to you is just that JavaScript's a garbage language sometimes. And if you need to check the type of a particular thing, I wouldn't use instance of, but I would look up the particular method that you can use to check to see if that thing is an instance of what you're looking for, right? So I think I'm going to gloss over that, but we can talk over Slack to figure that out a little bit more. Is that okay with everyone? Cool. So it being 11:45, cool, race against time. Let's see. We'll end this on talking about passing things in by reference, right? By reference or by value. Heads up, this is going to feel maybe a little heady. It's not necessarily something that you need to fully understand right now, right? It's maybe something neat to kind of put on your radar, but it won't really affect too much of what you're doing in the next couple weeks. Right? If I have an object and I have a function that takes that object, interesting things happen. So let me do this. I'm gonna. Oh, well, actually, one sec. I did forget one last thing. How do you loop through an object? Do you know? A for loop. What would your for loop look like if you? Yeah. So we have to use a for in. I'm just gonna put that in your what do you call it? Your cheat sheet. Looping through an object. Right? When we were looping through arrays, we were able to use C-style for loops, for in and for of. Right? Arrays, it's like the JavaScript people love arrays. They gave them so many different ways of looping. Looping over object, pretty limited. If I have an object that's going to be A is, we'll say A is hello, and B is world, and C is what up. Okay. If I want to loop through this thing, really the only option that I'm going to give you is going to be for, and then we'll say let key in object. Okay. You cannot do a of, right? And this isn't Footloose. I'm not like, oh, you can't dance in this town. Like this is, it just won't let you. It'll get angry at you. So if I do for let key in object, when I console.log key, that's going to get me A, then B, then C. So if I want the actual item, I'll have to go console.log obj square bracket key. Right? And that's going to get me the hello and etc. Cool? I want you to explore that. Let's just say that that's it. That's the only way that you can loop through objects. Right? Try it out. Might not get it the first time or the second time. Ask a mentor for help. Right? And within the first couple weeks, you'll be there. Right? So yeah, I did want to make sure that that was mentioned. Okay. Gear switch. The pass by reference. I just need to do my due diligence and show you what it is. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to make a new file called reference.js. Right? We're going to go ahead and make a function. How do we make functions? There we go. So const function name. This one's going to be say hello. This is a say hello function. This function here, I'm going to write it as a function literal. This function here is going to get a particular person, and it's going to go console.log hello, and then person.name, or square bracket name. You could totally do it with a dot, but I'm going to use a square bracket. So this function is going to say hello person name. So presumably, if I have a person, const Tim, who might be an object. So Tim might have a name, Tim. Tim might have other things about them, like a hobby. Tim's hobby is baking. Right? Tim likes magnets. Dislikes people's needs. Is anyone here into? Yeah, okay, there you go. Just needed someone. Dislikes people's needs. They'll know what it means. So these are things about Tim. I might go and use my function, say hello, and say hello to Tim. Is this fine as it is right now? Capital, oh, whoops. Let me make this a lowercase t, just because I like making my variables lowercase. Right? It doesn't actually make a difference. Oh, man, we're close. So say hello to Tim. This code here looks fine? Hmm? Like here? Maybe. So Bahara is saying maybe I need to use the name property here, but my say hello function, that one's actually doing the job of doing that, right? So I might not need to. Right? And I could run this now and see node reference JS, and I get hello Tim, and presumably I'd be able to just continue working with this if I had other objects like other people. I'm going to do something, make this a sneaky function. Sneaky function is going to go hello person name, and then it's also going to go person dot, or not dot, person square bracket dislikes, dislikes, I don't know, rain. Okay. And if I try to console.log Tim after we say hello to Tim, that function has changed Tim's dislikes. Sneaky function, bad function. Can everyone go bad function? Right? Not necessarily. This is a function that passes things in by reference, right? As opposed to by value. And we'll see what that means when I do things by value in a second. If I have another function called const say hello string, yeah, we'll do say hello string. This is also going to be a function. What this function is going to do is it's going to take a name, right? And it's going to go console.log hello, comma, then the name. And then after it, I might do something like name equals Bartholomew. Right? Changing the name. Oh no. If I go ahead and I call say hello string with Tim and just the name Tim, when I console.log Tim afterwards, even though this line here says to change the name, I'm going to find that Tim's name was not changed. So what I'm trying to show you here, and this is, again, something that I don't need you to fully understand, but more something that should just sort of be on your map, is that sometimes when functions are called, we give them a reference to the original value, meaning that the function is able to actually change that value on the outside. Other times when we call a function, what we do is we copy a value and we give it to the function. So the function doesn't actually have the original one, it has a copy of it. So it can try and make as many changes as it wants, it won't actually edit the original thing. Okay? For us, this is going to happen in basically two scenarios. If you are passing in a string or a number or a Boolean, any of those simple types, your function won't actually be able to edit them because it'll receive a copy. If instead your function receives an object or an array, right, those complicated types, then it will be able to change it. And I'll just leave it at that. Right? Pass by reference and by value can be quite a bit more complicated than that, but you'll explore it over the course of boot camp. Right? And it's less of the kind of thing that's going to be explored explicitly through like people telling you that this is what's happening, and more of something you're going to pull from the way that the language is being used, right? Just to be kind of upfront about how that's going to work. Here? So hello, and then the name here again. Cool. So we could check to see what that does. Right, and I got hello Tim, and then I got hello Bartholomew. Chew on that. Yes, it's a tough biscuit. So like I said, hello string is receiving a copied version of the thing. So it's able to edit it as much as it wants, but it's never going to edit the original one. Right? Cool. And that's, I think, the last thing that I wanted to touch on for today in the context of lecture. There is one more thing that I kind of want you to explore a little bit. Not necessarily too much because the assignments don't yet require you to. Yeah, like you're not really going to need to until you get to object methods and this, and even that's going to be fairly light. Or light in terms of like, there isn't going to be a ton to it. It won't be easy, but there isn't going to be like a ton to learn, as much as it is just kind of difficult to wrap your head around. But there is the word this, right? And my recommendation is that when you get to this, if it doesn't immediately start making sense, to call a mentor by, right? Because I find that it's the kind of thing that you learn pretty quickly through examples when somebody's showing you, right? But if I show it to you right now, you're not going to get to those assignments until the end of the day, so it's just kind of wasted, right? I would rather you kind of pull in a mentor for that. Does that sound okay? Right? If you find that you are having trouble with it, just let us know, and we can have like a quick 10-minute breakout lesson on it on like a whiteboard or something. But I do want to let you know that like this is going to pop up, just the word this. Don't fear it, but do ask for help when you get to it. Doesn't look like Calgary has any more questions. Do y'all have any questions? You feeling just fully kind of pumped and torqued to hop into objects? Can you give me a battle cry? Just like a, there we go. That's my guy. All right, 25 Nema bucks. Enjoy the rest of the day. Let me know if you have any questions. Notes will be out really soon. And again, with objects, if you're having trouble with them, ignore dot notation, right? If you're having trouble with them, just ignore dot notation. You might find that's simpler to work with. Cool? All right. Have a great rest of the day. Same goes for you, Calgary. And see you next time.